Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the COVID-19 Travel Mole broadcasts. And I'm extremely delighted today to have on this show people from the UK and from one of the UK's most popular destinations, the Isle of Wight. And we have not only a man that's going to be looking after us on the ferries, but also a man that knows everything there is to know there is about the nature of the island. And I'm welcome Nick Baker.
Hello.
And welcome Stuart James.
Hello, good morning.
Right, Stuart, you're our ferryman. What can you tell me about the state of Whitelink ferries at the moment? Are you running everything? I know that from personal experience, people are getting very upset about the Fast Cat not running from Portsmouth to Ryde. I wonder if you could explain why that's not running and how you're dealing with the increase, I assume, an increase in demand.
Well, yes, yeah, Graham, as you know, obviously we were heavily affected by the COVID situation, and we actually reduced from 8 ships across 3 routes down to a lifeline service to the island, operating 1 ship out of Portsmouth Fishbourne on 7 days a week. And that was carrying obviously freight and essential services and workers to and from the island. Since then, and particularly with the government announcements around about the 5th of July and the opening up of more unrestricted travel, we've been able to introduce more services on a demand basis. So we're delighted that we are able now to operate. We're operating 2 ships, and this from the next week or so, we'll be operating actually a 3rd ship over the weekends as well on our Portsmouth Fishbourne route. And we're opening up the Lymington-Yarmouth route as well on Friday, an operating ship out of that as well, all down to increased demand. Unfortunately, at the moment, in terms of the Fast Cat service, the demand isn't there. It is obviously all based on demand for that route, and at the moment with the operating of the services that we've got and the joint operating that we're doing with the other Solent operators, the current demand is about 15% of what it should be at this time of year. So on that basis, we're not in a position to actually operate the Fast Cat.
If I've got my bike and I want to do a little bit of cycling, which the Isle of Wight promote with their cycling cycling festival, do I come across to the ferry terminal and jump on that?
You certainly can, absolutely, and we have lots of cyclists who are doing precisely that, and I think Nick experienced that as well last week. Yes, you can very much travel on our, obviously on our ferries out of Portsmouth, Fishbourne, and Lymington-Yarmouth, and yes, and there's plenty of space on those ships to accommodate.
Okay, and if I'm a pedestrian when I get to Fishbourne, are you laying anything special on for people to get into Ryde or into Newport?
No, there is a bus service, so there's the usual public transport that's available there. Yeah, it's it's obviously based on people's travel habits.
And I noticed that you've relaxed the rules about if you get on the ferry in your car, you now have to get out as you used to. But during the pandemic and just before, in fact, you're allowed to stay in the car. It's almost like going back 10 years when you're allowed to stay in the car. What was the logic behind that?
Well, it was obviously there was a relaxation in the MCA regulations for cross-Solent operators, all based around at the time obviously the government restrictions around COVID-19. As those restrictions have eased, we're now in a position where we're able to allow people back into the lounges, and obviously those lounges are on our ships. They're very spacious. You're able to obviously walk around, following government guidelines, wearing a face mask, etc. But the passenger decks are wide open, plenty of spacing, seating, etc. Much more comfortable, so you're able to actually travel much more enjoyably and safely as well. And obviously we've got open decks. You can obviously get out in the fresh air and enjoy the wonderful views of the Solents and the islands as well. So obviously much better experience, but all based on the fact that obviously those restrictions have now been lifted.
Okay, and as far as demand is concerned, you said increased in demand for ferry service, not Fast Cat.
Yes.
Will Miles from Visit Isle of Wight told me that they're just about to embark, or they've just embarked on some massive marketing campaign saying how fabulous the island is. Have you put that into your calculations that may cause some additional demand? He also said that as far as the island is concerned, there's very little accommodation, self-catering accommodation left between now and October. So it's presumably just bed and breakfast and hotels you're filling up now.
It's not just that. Obviously, there's the camping and you know, the self-service accommodation, which is obviously the island's ideal for, and you know, there's a lot of there is capacity for that as well. So there's that market that's available, and there's a booking trend here actually. I mean, that people are booking and travelling soon, and I think, you know, it's as people actually feel confident and comfortable that you know, that it is safe to holiday in the UK. The Isle of Wight is an absolute fantastic destination for that, wide open areas, and obviously Nick will be able to allude on some of the you know, the nature opportunities that the island offers. But you know, it is a spectacular place to visit, and you know, is an inviting option to obviously deliver holidays for people that may well have considered going abroad previously. I think it's got a lot to offer from that perspective, and you know, it is you know, is you know, an island paradise really in some respects. So so certainly we're seeing there has been an uplift, and that's why we brought in additional services, and you know, we have obviously hoping that that opportunity is going to continue throughout the summer, but also looking at whether there's opportunity for later staycations as well in the UK, and working closely with Will and Visit Wight on obviously trying to extend the season as well. So
Cool.
I think people. Yeah.
Excellent. So late breaks all the way into almost to the end of the year in the Isle of Wight. Now I'm on the Isle of Wight. What can I do, Nick? What can I see?
Well, I've been going to the Isle of Wight since, well, I haven't been for a few years until just last week, but I've been going every year since I was born, all the way through until I think I was supposed to be in 25, 26, something like that. So I kind of got to know it as a family destination. That is where, you know, my mum and dad had their honeymoon there in a tent on the Knighton Undercliff. And being creatures of habit, they just kept going back to the same place. And yeah, we got to know it really, really well. So going back last week, because it was just last week I was over there, it seems like a lifetime away. It just took me straight back. I relaxed immediately. Just saw, you know, it's incredible for a tiny little island. It packs a massive punch. It's got so much there. For me, as a naturalist, of course, my interest is slightly more, well, a bit more organic maybe than your average holiday maker. I don't know, but I get massive pleasure out of the natural features of the island. And if you want to get to know it really well, it starts with the geology and just work upwards. You know, it starts with the rocks and the soil, which is second to none, and then it becomes all the things growing on it. The whole layout of the island, understanding the really dynamic coastline, the erosion, the sandy beaches, which of course is a product of that erosion. It just brought it all back, and it was amazing. And of course, I did start cycling. I did do some cycling as a youngster on the island, but as a wiser, older, slightly more nervous cyclist, I refound a place that is a cycling paradise. In fact, I was speaking to some cyclists here on Dartmoor, where I live, who were on furlough, and they're just like, "Well, I've got nothing to do. We're just cycling around." And I told them about the Isle of Wight, and they hadn't even thought about it. They come all the way from London down to Dartmoor, and I said, "Go to the Isle of Wight. It's got nice undulating hills. It's got what you want. It's got enough of a challenge to you know, make you break out in a sweat if you want to. But equally, there's some really lovely, no traffic, lazy kind of routes which are really quiet. You've got some fantastic. Once I say there's quiet, there's some places which don't have any vehicles at all. There's the old railway network, for example, the Red Squirrel Trail, which runs. It's pretty much, well, certainly half the island is you can do without almost seeing a car, which for me is awesome. I mean, where else can you do that? And of course, it takes you around all the best bits as well. It takes you around all the old station stops, which would have been all the major towns, certainly on the east, northeast. I think it goes all the way down It's Cowes down to is it going to be Shanklin? I don't know. It's almost like draw a diagonal line across the island, and it's all one side of that, and it's brilliant. And then of course you can get off that very easily onto other minor roads and explore the rest of the island. And so that straight away is brilliant. And you mentioned earlier on about the camping. To me, it's an island made for camping. There are loads of campsites there, and if you are walking or cycling, the great thing about the island is it's doable. And it's because it's so small, you can get from place to place. Forget how easy it is to get from one side of the island to the other. And even though you get your OS map out, it looks daunting, all this network of lanes. But the reality is, it's actually very doable. So none of the distances are massive. And if you do have to get on a bus or use the public transport, it doesn't take you very long to get anywhere anyway. So all in all, it's the perfect sanctuary in a sort of a post-COVID world, and I strongly recommend it, definitely. And the wildlife is stunning. I could talk about rock pooling, wildlife, snorkeling, bird watching. It's a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve as well, which kind of keeps getting left off the conversation. But yeah, that puts it up there with Uluru, Ayers Rock, and Yellowstone National Park. It's that special.
Good. Well, so for people that don't know the island, they probably don't know about the red squirrels and the fact there's no grey squirrels there.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about that, did I?
No, they probably don't know about the dinosaurs. And also, I wondered what your opinion was with the reintroduction of the white-tailed eagles.
Oh, well, you just brought up, yeah, because I missed all that straight away. So as a naturalist, it's the only place in the south, other than Brownsea Island, where you can see red squirrels. I mean, the nearest population of wild red squirrels is up north of Liverpool. So, it's the only place. Grey squirrels didn't make it across the Solent. So the red squirrels survived the competition and the disease that the grey squirrels brought with them. So red squirrel it's an original woodland. You go to a woodland on the Isle of Wight and you see native squirrels doing the things they would have done not that long ago on the mainland. So it's like going back in time. So that's really magical. And when I was there last week, we saw several squirrels. Didn't manage to film them all, it has to be said. I was on my bike and the film crew in a car. So I was on the bike, I saw more on the bike than they did in the car. But yeah, we did get them in the end. But yeah, red squirrels. Water vole is a similar story. So if you're into rare British mammals, the water vole is also over there in good numbers, because the mink, which is the major source of their predation elsewhere in the UK, the introduced American mink, on the Isle of Wight, it never made it across. So you've got that. Deer are a rarity on the island. Occasionally a roe deer swims across, but as a consequence of that, you don't have the browsing and grazing pressure that you have elsewhere, which means that you've got good understory in the woodlands, which means in the spring the dawn chorus is second to none. But it's a really, really good place for all birds and bats as a consequence as well. And then you've got the things we're putting back, and it all fits really nicely into this feel-good thing that's going on. It's a wild island. I mean, it's always been good. I mean, a huge portion of its surface area is put aside as nature reserve and preserved, but the actual UNESCO status is a biggie. And of course, there's various things going on. The Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust are working very closely. Lots of these projects actually are supported by Whitelink. And we've got some very exciting things going on. So there's the white-tailed eagle, also known as the sea eagle. There's a big reintroduction there. It's all top secret at the moment, but the eagles aren't. Their eagles are getting about a bit. I think most of them have flown up to Yorkshire at the moment, but there is one knocking around, and in time those birds will come back, hopefully. And there is also, I think it's a 5-year project. I think they're introducing new birds every year, so the population will go up, and eventually we hope that they'll start breeding again on the island. So that's, I mean, and which could be massive for tourism as well. So ecotourism, wildlife tourism has been proven on the Scottish Isle of Mull, where the eagles were the driving force and they were the point of interest. Here, I'm imagining everyone's hoping it would be the same. And it was a bird that was all around our coast. So the Isle of Wight is really setting a standard. And because it is slap bang in the middle of the south coast there, it's a brilliant place for these eagles to disseminate and colonise our entire coastline. So that's a major, major good news story. I mean, as a small boy, as a holiday maker on the island, if I'd seen an eagle, it would just have blown my mind. As it was, I was excited enough about kestrels back then. An eagle would have done it. And what's changed? There's a lot of things that have changed for the positive. We've got birds. I mean, I saw buzzards galore when I was there last week. And when I was a kid, there were no buzzards on the Isle of Wight, or if they were very rare. So things like that. There's red kites flying around everywhere. So it is rewilding itself, but also we are pushing it and nudging it in the right direction. There's also some exciting plans to bring back beaver to the island as well. So for me, it just gets better and better. It was good. It was good when I was 1. It's even better now I'm 48.
Good. Well, I could talk to you for a long time about the Isle of Wight and the kestrels, particularly at the Needles. There's lots of kestrels there.
Anyway,
one of my worries about the island is whether it will suffer from over-tourism in this post-COVID world. So I probably don't want to get into that debate now necessarily, but I know that Whitelink have done a little bit in terms of the environment, particularly with the pardon me, Yarmouth Lymington ship, which is a greener ship. Perhaps we can finish off this interview, Stuart, by telling you what you're doing as far as the environment is concerned, as far as the ferries are concerned.
Well, probably the main thing to mention there is our Victoria Wight ship, which operates on the Portsmouth Fishbourne route, which is a hybrid ship. So it is battery powered, and it is the first one on the Solent. And obviously, we're very proud of that and very keen on obviously what else we can do. We're continuing to look at all environmental measures that we can do from an operator perspective, but also working with the beautiful islands and ecological and environmental activities across the islands, whether that's supporting the reintroduction of wildlife through to rock pools, etc., which we've planted at a number of our terminals there to encourage back the things like the oysters, etc. Trying to think what they're called now. I've completely forgotten what they're called, but we've got those at our terminals, and obviously looking to build on that and looking at other things that we can do from an environmental aspect, certainly at each of our ports as well. So very much keen to accentuate that, and as part of the experience as well for our customers. Marvellous. Well, Nick, Stuart, thank you very much for your time this morning. As I said, I could speak for about another hour or 2 hours all about the Isle of Wight and its nature and what it's got to offer. So thank you, and very best of luck in your endeavours.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.